Actually, it should be.
Hi everyone, we're about to start the water hackathon. So join us online here on the Open Hour page and you can catch up with everything we're doing. Thanks for coming.
Cool.
Don, what's
It's charging a battery, and I didn't have a spare.
I see. Okay. Okay, that would be great. Do you mind if I move these and I'll bring them back to you?
Oh,
so
yeah,
that
fine.
Anybody who joins online can see you?
Yes.
No pressure.
As long as if there's a fire drill, someone helps me. Yeah, that's my biggest concern.
Right here.
That's fine.
Yeah, great.
Emily, you've been also
On my porch?
Yes.
As one meets.
Back in the day. But when we started talking about we're starting the reading group.
Shortly.
Totally. Cool. I'll pass along the articles.
Hey, Jeff, can you do me a favor and can you go to the Open Hour page and try to get on to the video? Just click on the video and hopefully it'll pull you in.
Alright, what are these other ones?
Fantastic. Photo resistor.
Yay, great. I'm
Resistor is
Yeah, because it doesn't even say that I have any viewers. That's something that's been interesting is that viewers that view from the public cloud page don't come up on here.
So, what?
What are you doing? Are you real timing me? Should I do a little dance?
Yeah, photo resistor, and these are 10. So rather than 0.1, it would be 10
Okay, Don, you need
capacitor as well.
Yep.
10 of these. Hey, Scott. What's up? Can you hear us?
The thing. Okay, there's a cigarette lighter and my phone is here. Yeah. There's two though. Make sure you use one for the pod.
10 coffees, Don? Where'd he go?
Oh, breadboards.
Breadboard?
Breadboards, yeah.
Scott, can you hear us? Are you on mute? If you can hear me, can you get on IRC and let me know that you can hear me? The chat.
It's just more wires.
These are
Well, it does take out a lot of the contaminants because it goes through 3 filters. One's a reverse osmosis.
Scott, I have 2 of you.
It may not take out everything, but it takes out a lot. It takes out chlorine, which is a carcinogenic substance.
So, during the session when we get started, I'm actually going to mute the audio so we don't get the background noise. You can't hear me. Okay, you can't hear me.
No, I know. No, pharmaceuticals are still there.
I know filters not doing that.
Well, there's nothing that does anything in your dish.
Wait, Jeff, can you help me fix the audio here? For some reason, they can't hear me. Oh, okay. You can hear us now? Okay. Sorry. Were you on mute? Did you have me muted?
Scott hadn't plugged in.
I had several things muted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
There were 3 levels of mute. I had to get through them.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Who has the empty chair next to them? Right there. See, look. Everyone wants to hang out with you.
The third we had it was really sort of interesting. They had a tomato soup as the first entree, 4 courses. And everybody at my table was looking at each other going, you know, I wouldn't normally try tomato soup, but since it's the first course, it was good tomato soup as well. And the dessert was stewed apple with oats.
Because
In a major hotel, I've never had stewed, it wasn't a twist, it was just stewed apples with oats.
Scott, did you get in from the link on the Open Hour page?
I got in on the Google Hangout link. That's where I clicked.
Okay.
The big long one. It's like Google Plus.
Not on the, but you didn't go on the Open Hour one?
I think that's where I found that link. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And you just click. I just want to know that that link works.
That's the, yeah, well, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I meant. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, we're going to get started in 2 minutes, so if you want snacks, help yourself, please. We'll get going.
So, did you hear? I'm gonna turn my volume way down. But if anybody, you or anybody else who comes in, and you can tell that to them, whoever. Do you want to moderate? Whoever joins us.
Yes, I don't know how to do that, but all right.
No, it's cool. I'm just going to turn our volume way down, so I won't actually hear anything anybody says. So if anybody like comes in and starts talking and asking questions, if you can direct them to either post questions in here or post it on the chat page on Public Lab, then we can answer questions and comments as they come in. But I won't, because I don't want any feedback or background noise, I'm just going to turn off our audio. Does that work?
Because they issued it.
Not for Scott. I lost you. Does that work?
They issued more than just the 404. They don't.
Scott? Hello?
I couldn't hear you. I heard what you said was that you turned my audio down, so I should use the IRC chat.
I'm going to turn our audio, like, I'm going to turn my volume totally off. So you can hear us, but we can't hear you. Can you hear me?
So, yeah, you're going to mute me.
No.
So if you mute me, then I need to use the IRC chat to communicate.
Yeah, and just anybody else that comes in, we won't be able to hear them, but they should be able to hear us. But they can use either the chat on the sidebar or the IRC chat.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. That's to make you quiet. Oh, I see.
Depends on how you interpret the different that I have to. I didn't put it in because no, we don't take climate change. There's one that says we have the ability to engage in projects.
We could also just do this.
Okay.
What I've learned from doing this is that it sometimes catches on fire. So we shall see.
I might be able to do it. I just don't want to. Since I'm using this policy, I don't worry about it.
Ready.
We can just turn it off.
Great.
Welcome. I'm really happy so we are at Power. Power is running the water challenge this year. A short competition designed to and support local talent developing place to our region perspective. We have an accelerator class that is right now. We're also kicking off but as part of that, my name is Miriam. I'm with Waterworks. I'm table and thankfully taking notes for us. Has help develop some programming throughout the year. This is a workshop, a series of workshops with EPA and so really excited. This is the first that is focused on clean water emissions. And so we had a workshop about a month ago talking about water monitoring. Both nonprofits, they were all talking about what they monitor, how they do it, how much they pay for it, what are the different things they're interested in monitoring. So from that workshop, we realized that there really are gaps in which both of those can solve some solutions. And so we are very fortunate to have a really wonderful local experts. Emily Jamison, who we've engaged really about how to create quantitative and qualitative methodology. And then we also have a wonderful computer lab, and I think a lot of folks are also listening in. And they develop DIY, low-cost environmental monitoring tools using incredible community, international community approaches that are really very relevant. So I'm going to turn it over, and I'll let you also introduce yourself in Hackathon. Everybody should have a copy of the agenda if you want to follow along. Please help yourself to snack, restrooms to the back and to the left. And we're going to start off the evening with a talk from Emily. In sort of substation and then John will be actually playing. So I'm going to turn it over to Emily Dickinson, who's going to lead the
So I'm the only thing standing between you and the electronic tapas, so I will not take too much of your time. Miriam asked me to come here because I have worked a lot on creative methodologies in looking at research strategies in a variety of industries. The paper that you saw distributed is one that I contributed to as a social scientist on that paper, so I can answer about 30% of any questions you might have about it. I've worked in economic development, fisheries, as you see there, environmental planning and housing, and I currently work in public health with the Institute of Women and Ethnic Studies. And so what I'm hoping to provide for you before you get started with your meal, yeah. Cool. Thank you. We're going to have someone else that's not me do that.
Needs to be close to the speaker.
Cool.
So we could probably turn this.
I know they've been in Mississippi.
So I believe that as a group, we can't really get to the underlying capital T truth about what's happening with our water and our environment without both looking at data and talking to people, which is why I love talking about integrative methodologies, and I think why Miriam invited me for tonight. So first off, there's a lot of different people in the room, and I know that ultimately one of our goals is to make sure that research is accessible. A lot of different communities, yourself included, are impacted by water quality environmental changes, but a lot of people are really distanced away from the research and the language that people use to talk about it. And so I'm going to provide a framework to hopefully make sure that everyone, at least in this room, feels like the work that we're doing and the research that we're talking about is accessible and can go home and talk to your neighbors about it. So first off, we've used the terms quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative has to do with numbers. Qualitative has to do with text. Who can give me an example of a quantitative strategy?
That's just a legend.
Go ahead. Great, so that's a great example. How high is water? You just need numbers, you can track it, you can look at the statistics. What about qualitative? It has to do with text, stories, things like that. What would be a research paper?
Well, I know it's that way, but
I kind of wondered about
Exactly, right? So you talk to multiple generations of families. What did the river look like 50 years ago? Exactly. What about a research strategy that brings the two of them together?
go up on that bridge if they have any kind of extra road on the
hang on behind out and get hit by
And another one that folks might be familiar with is if you've ever done a survey where there's multiple choice and there's short answer, that's an example of a really simple integrative strategy. If you're looking to graph changes over time, if you're looking for specific numbers, but you also want to know more about people's stories and people's experiences, then you can integrate those in that simple way. So we're going to briefly, after I provide an overview of what we talked about last time, talk about data that's missing or things that we would like to know more about. So when we talk about that, we're going to look at two questions. If the data is missing, can my organization, some organization that I am affiliated with, do the collection? And if so, what sort of capacity increase will we need? Easy, medium, or hard? So with those in mind, I'm going to do a super brief overview from the October 21st meeting. I'm not the perfect person to do this because there were experts presenting. How many of y'all were at the meeting on October 21st? All right, so what I say is exactly what happened. We also have notes. There are notes. If you actually want to know what happened, there are notes. So presenting at that meeting was the City of New Orleans, CPRA, the Water Institute of the Gulf, NORA, the Lake Conservation Foundation, the Sewage and Water Board, and Public Labs, who delightfully is here. Are there anyone who works for those organizations? Who you work for? Perfect. So when I screw it up, just jump in. Okay. So on the 21st, the Lake Pontchartrain Basin talked about their work testing water quality, mostly focused on recreation and impaired water bodies. They do weekly data updates on basin water quality, and they have archived data from 1990. There are 10 projects in multiple parishes where they're doing bacterial dissolved oxygen. Right? Validation is what I like. So NORA is not currently doing water quality monitoring, but they do have 5 pilot water management projects with a focus on hazard mitigation, and they're in partnership with the Mosquito and Termite Control Board and Waterworks to do that. The Sewage and Water Board is monitoring Orleans Parish based on EPA. They're currently monitoring total maximum daily load. They're sampling biological oxygen demand and outfall sampling in collaboration with the Lake Pontchartrain. City of New Orleans, as they said, don't have much data and we can't have it. They really are focusing just on flooding, and their data on flooding comes from national flood insurance data. So if you don't make a claim, then they don't even register that anything happened to you. So, but they're interested in learning more, as the city is. The Water Institute of the Gulf is putting together a really interesting project called SWAMP, which is integrating water quality data with a lot of other sources, data from fisheries, climate, landscape, elevation, all of these data sources they're trying to pull together to provide sort of a comprehensive place where we can get information about our coast. CPRA, which is the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority, has 391 sites across the coast, and they've had them for 7 years. And they monitor temperature, water level, and salinity at the sites. They also look at other components, but that's what's across all of this. And finally, Public Labs presented there, and they're here. And they really focus on community-based monitoring. So we see from this what type of methodology does this bring through. Quantitative, right. So what I encourage everyone to do is, as we're going through and talking about what data we want, what we want to see, let's talk about the research that we want to happen. And if you're talking about qualitative research, think about a quantitative component that can contribute to it, and vice versa. And then also, if you are here representing an organization and you want to talk about a project that you're interested in doing or data that you think your organization could collect, now is the time to sort of figure out what we can do to move that from, say, hard or medium to easy through collaborations and other strategies. So does anyone have anything off the bat that they would like to see either their organization do, another organization do, or to have access to in your community? And is that something that you know an organization to do it? Okay, perfect. And so if you were to take the lead, you would need collaboration. how much more capacity would you need as an organization to make that happen? Higher? Would you need, what does it look like for you, easy, medium, or hard?
I mean, this depends on the scope. Our idea is just water tech. You can't very well manage groundwater levels without how much they are. So I can see that. I can see any kind of a range of plan, but ranges from pilot scale or very localized in certain problem areas, or it could be totally city, so we have to decide how.
Sure. And it wouldn't necessarily be comprehensive all at once, right? It's probably starting with. What else do y'all have? Any other ideas? Cool, yeah. And do you have an organization in mind who you think would be great at collecting it?
Yeah, just to do research and figure out what
Cool. So even something that's accessible to me, and I don't work in the physical sciences, right? Something that we can use to evaluate what it looks like. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, well, what, how many,
Cool. Right. So figuring out if there are ways to take the lab out of the picture too, if there's immediate results. It sounds like something that public lab might be interested in. Anything else? What else are y'all thinking about that would be helpful for you to know? Yeah.
So once we get a groundwater, figure out what's in rainwater, we could also do some soil testing, water testing before and after when we do some kind of say it's coming out of your downspout, you're running through a rain garden, you can test if it's starting a rain garden, and then a reference site, and maybe actually get some good ideas of the qualities of the infrastructure.
For sure. Are you here with an organization?
No, a graduate student. Finishing up this. So sorry,
Nice.
I can't take that on as a research project.
No, but it sounds like, so the sewage and water board, am I right? Who's doing the pilot project? Oh, Nora is doing pilot project.
Yeah,
And
great.
right, and their focus is on hazard mitigation, flood, like water retention. So it would be interesting to add that as a component.
You guys are all really, really awesome. I just want to say, as a fellow tenant, this is so exciting, and keep up the great work. Wish I could stay, I can't, but it's awesome.
You'll want to Tupperware. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, cool.
Our work is basically what I can do as well, and say, okay, there's water there, it's not water there. So that's the extent of what I can do. We're checking to see if there's mosquito break and stuff like that. So, kind of work on it. We're working on methods of we're just trying to figure out what's out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there new research or data that would be useful for the work that you're currently doing?
We just need, how much water there is, what's the quality of water there is, about how the environment.
So you're just looking at those pilot sites?
So we're looking for mosquito breeding, and then some other stuff.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah.
We're actually working with Nora on that. We're doing, you were saying, sampling like getting put in after the
Perfect. So we solved the thing. You guys should hang out.
The Lake Punch.
That's awesome. Is there anything that you would, any suggestions that you might have to make your work easier or to improve it?
I mean, stormwater sampling is at the end of the day, get a little bit.
And you have to be in a storm.
Right. But I mean, a lot of it's just vigilance and just having people that are able to do that. Another thing is like good labs. That's just hard. It's like numerous labs that are certified to do this kind of stuff. They're doing canon. Get that stuff.
Cool. So stormwater monitoring, is that something that you think that your organization could do?
Mm-hmm.
And how much more capacity, how hard do you think it would be?
I mean, we have plenty of equipment. Also, hire the people.
Sure.
We have
Cool. And you're lacking lab testing ability. Is that something that, are y'all considering a lab?
I mean, we talked about like potential for that. It's through just like analyzing our own samples, it would potentially be viable. But if you were to do anybody else's samples, then it gets more complicated because they can get certified, like lab certified.
Mm-hmm.
But it is.
And there might be folks in the room who might use the lab too, which could then generate income. Let me just venture to guess that that goes in the hard category. Anything else? Other things that folks are working on, or ways that they think that the information that they have can be improved? Yeah.
I got your late.
No, welcome.
I understand well one of the things that I'm working with the bunch on groundwater issues, looking at how water infiltrates rain gardens or other infrastructure sites, whether they're are getting rates of volume in the rain garden using a groundwater monitor, then also see how long it takes to infiltrate. One thing we're finding with engineers is that they say, well, soil doesn't infiltrate, but that just takes a long time. But then also finding some way to measure subsidence in the city. And the tools for doing that can be expensive. Take up groundwater monitor. So the sensors that will update me about 6 or 7 acre. And those are things you have to pull out of the ground and then get back and measure. Trying to find a way to measure that real time, linking into a weather station that's logging that data.
Are you here with an organization today?
Yeah. Wagner and Ball, architects, and then also
Cool. So are those anything that your organization would be interested in spearheading, groundwater monitoring, or?
Those are really interesting water and doing that at a scale level. So they're each little groundwater monitor is several $1,000. And get through all the equipment, right? So the way it sits in the ground cheaply, the same way that you do the weather platform. So I ordered something. It's got uses. He asked me to order something that's kind of the whole thing.
Cool. And being able to measure subsidence.
Yes, and that's another one that we had an idea of somehow using cell phones to measure vibration driving your car around and see what the damage areas are. And apparently that already exists.
Cool. Just driving in New Orleans would take it off.
But then also like LiDAR, where they take evidence and then over time do it later. But the problem with the LiDAR that we have is that it's not replayed, updated the last time we've done it in 2005. So, yeah.
So are there partnerships that you're looking to make? Are there other organizations that you think could help with this process?
I think part of it is just having a funding stream and architects aren't known that people
Sure.
do this, right? This is more water
Sure.
normative and Army Corps or something that city water work. Oh yeah, that's our is a Dutch institute. It's similar to the Water Institute in Gulf. There's actually all of them that are there are several hundred people that have extraordinary. They come in a lot. We're big operators in the water.
One thing, if you're looking at these, I think that there are some publicly available states that are previously. There's a lot of parents. I mean, for someone to, when people use that, they just like it to look at exactly that. It's not something that, costs billions of dollars. I mean, it costs billions literally to acquire, but it does not for you to acquire. I know, satellite slum.
Do people have other folks? Because this is, we've talked a lot about quantitative data that we really want. Does anyone have ideas about the way that qualitative data and other types of information can influence this work that we're doing?
Collecting people's stories of where they're seeing changes in their water system would be really useful. I'd love to kind of look at all history content. We can talk about just like how water changes with development, how they've seen changes in flooding, how it's being affected by the silo projects, is there something helping or hurting? I think that kind of data would be really good.
I keep hearing about the water quality out of the faucet. That would be changing.
And it seems like there would be a good point of connection if we're asking folks to measure groundwater in their own yards, or if we're asking people to participate in this work, to ask them also, and what are you seeing happening, right? We don't just want your numbers, we want your input, because they're already engaged. One of the ways that I've used qualitative in my work in this area is when you don't have the capacity to have sensors out at every location that you're interested in, there are people that sometimes might be going to that location. So I worked a lot with indigenous folks who fish, and they will go to a lot of the places that we were really curious about. Freshwater diversions, what do they see happening because they're there every day? Or what happened 100 years ago, because our data doesn't go back that far. There are ways that we can sort of cobble these types of information together to give us a broader and more accurate picture of what's happening. Did you have something, sir?
What about that group, I think it's Good Time? There's something where they had it in schools and putting the school kids. Yeah, what about that individual? That seems more closer to the ground. They're already doing something like that.
Y'all know about them? Yes. Jen's nodding.
They're funded by one word grant this year, and they're starting out in term. They do a King University water literacy program, and they're working with kids. Different right now. And basically have students basically found
Other qualitative ideas?
I think photographic evidence and monument photographs or work photographs. I spent an afternoon about a week ago talking to a guy in ULAC and all on board who just describing them. It's sort of labor intensive to do that, I think. I mean, I found photographs of areas in Lower Sheridan where I showed based on landmarks. Some photos, never show definite.
all know that there's a political component to this work that we're doing that's funding related and legislation related, and sometimes things like that can go just as far as things like as numbers and data and reports, and it's an important component. The other thing that I think is so important about qualitative research is finding out the way that people, especially low-income folks, are impacted by what we're studying. And that can help to drive what direction we're going in, right? If it's, do we do this project or this project, rainwater, groundwater, we have resources for one, instead of sort of board meeting that to death. There's ways that folks who are directly impacted can be involved to help make those decisions. Other ideas? Cool. Not the end, just to get you going. I really appreciate everyone's suggestions. I think they're really useful. I know that Matthias has taken diligent notes about them. And happy to wrap up. If anyone has any questions that they want to pose to myself or the group or anyone that they heard speak, now would be a time for that. Perfect. Then there's no answers.
Yeah, if anybody doesn't want their contact information shared, let us know. If you're okay with it, we can put y'all in touch. In the last workshop, in which Emily summarized sort of what each of these agencies are collecting, and we use that to sort of determine where there's some gaps, which y'all have identified already, some ways to fill those gaps. So it's really exciting. So I want to thank Emily so much for getting us started today. It was great. And right now it is 6:43. I think we're going to take a 10-minute break. So if you want to get some more food, you use restrooms, and then we'll ask you to come back at 6:55, and we'll get started with the next portion, which is going to be a hands-on activity where you get to play with these things. So I'm going to see fun. Yeah, if you have any questions for Emily, also, I know we'd only picked off a few copies of the so if you all are interested in reading more about Emily's work and these approaches that can integrate quantitative and qualitative methodologies, Ginny is kind of turn off some copies of them, so please grab one before you head out tonight.
And just don't call the journalist. That's always
Thank you so much.
Yes, of course. Probably for a little while. I'll see how the old foot skewing. Yeah. But forgive me if I
Hey. Can I copy some of those? I think
Oh, right. Hey, Sue.
I'll probably call off. Oh my god, that's nice.
This is a thing that you invented.
Is it really that Yeah, I'm beginning to think that. Like I was describing to you.
Oh, okay, great. That's what I think it would be great if we focus Thursday on that.
Hey guys, how's it going here? This one I think you can hear me from.
I have two of these guys, which are their batteries. It's
You have two of these what?
Two of these guys are 3.7 volt battery things, and it says 5. Well, it's actually 3.7 volts. So it boosts it to 5 volts, but there's ground and battery are labeled, so we can use those to connect as well. Sorry, that's just to say that, like, okay.
If we need to.
Yeah, because I don't know if we have 10 holders that are not melted.
It's pretty cool.
It's really hard for people at home to follow, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they had a hard time hearing people's responses. They can hear us right here.
Yeah.
So I unfortunately got on that computer a little too late to relay, but there's notes taken and we'll post those on the open hour page.
Cool. Yeah.
So, but I'm trying to figure out how to pull out my presentation and screen share. Where did mine go? There it is.
What's the link again? publiclab/wiki/
Open hour.
open hour?
Yeah. So publiclab.org/wiki.
I'm putting the brake on.
Oh, thank you. Okay, guys, I'm going to screen share with you, so you're going to see a presentation, and then in a few minutes we'll get going on it. Screen share, entire screen.
putting all this together, Jen. All this. Thanks for putting all this. It's a lot of labor.
In 5 minutes, I'll introduce you.
Yeah, I was gonna do like a. What do you want me to do? How about that first?
I just wanted you to sort of generally introduce Public Lab.
Okay, great, got it.
And talk about your work. You can mention the barn raising that you all just had.
Okay, yeah, I have
maybe
like a.
ask people to like raise their hand who are part of Public Lab and
Sure.
tell people how they can get involved.
Okay,
And then turn it over to John.
Okay.
Or I can introduce John if you want to.
Okay, either way. Do you know how I can, for some reason, I'm screen sharing right now, so I want them to see this same display, but if I swap displays, then this one actually goes up here.
Interesting. I am not the right person to ask. Let me ask
Jeff.
Ginny, maybe.
Hey, Jeff. Can you help me for a second? So I'm screen sharing on Google Hangout.
And presenting.
Yeah, and I want them to see this screen here, but if I swap it, then this screen actually goes up here. So is there any way to?
Is this where you're hanging out?
I'm hanging out down below.
Where?
Right, that's the hangout. So it's already screen sharing.
They're gonna go crazy.
They're cool.
So you can choose the screen here. So choose one.
Yeah, okay, that one.
Or you can choose a window. But that's kind of weird.
I just do my full screen. So I just want the PowerPoint to actually just show the same thing up there as here, and it just to be the PowerPoint.
Oh. So you only have one screen. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll do that, and then PowerPoint. I haven't done it in PowerPoint, honestly. I don't use it much, but I bet we could turn off the presenter display.
Okay.
Do you see that? It's like a presentation. One.
Or you
Under
just go to view.
Presenter view.
This hasn't been a problem before. Or just slideshow, maybe? Or will that scroll?
I think it
through
will
on
just
its own?
do exactly what it was before.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
it recognizes that there are two screens.
Right.
I don't know PowerPoint that well. Slideshow. Let me turn off the presenter display. There's presenter view. You could. Where is the file? It's like on the desktop.
Yeah.
Cool. So what's it called?
Propeller.
So I think you can just present this. It's a little weird. Like but just like from the desktop. Let's see if this works. Maybe you should give you a new screen or a new disk sometime because it's pretty slow. So you, like here,
Okay.
and sometimes you can. Right. See, it's like letting you do it in this preview thing. You can like, you know?
Okay, yeah.
But I guess not. See.
I feel like you should just be able to change that in the settings.
It's open in preview instead of PowerPoint. You should be able, and I'm sure there's somewhere you can, but it's a lot of menus, and I haven't used PowerPoint before, so. This may work. It'll just read it as well as it can. It'd be good enough. Yeah, okay.
Then can you view like people?
Yeah,
Okay, that'll work.
let me just
That's not actually.
size.
That's actually there.
So zoom. We can like just. Oh, and then not continuous. Sorry. View. Single page at a time. Where does it say that? Continuous
Single
scroll.
page. So maybe you're on a setting that's. You're still way zoomed out.
Yeah. Well, that's frustrating.
Stevie, are you ready?
I think it's because it's like.
Okay, why don't I just expand it to on this?
Yeah.
Let me know when you're ready. Okay.
I think almost, right?
Yeah, we're almost.
I would just do it this way, I guess. Why is it still? Are we still in presentation?
I don't know. Should I just do it the way the normal PowerPoint?
Oh, there we go. Okay. It was like, still thought it was presenting.
And then how do I switch?
I guess it's just going to present them in order, which is stupid.
I think I'll just go to the PowerPoint.
Okay. You would think there'd be an easy way to turn off the presenter display.
Yeah. Normal.
Try entering full screen instead of.
I hate when it does that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can look it up.
I don't know how to get out of the.
Do you mind if we get?
Yep, go ahead.
So we had a wonderful introduction, overview, and now we're going to go transition into the hands-on portion of our evening. So I wanted to introduce Stevie, who is with Public Lab, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about Public Lab's work. Who here is affiliated, a member of Public Lab?
It crashed.
I'm just opening PowerPoint because it started to get confused.
So I'm going to let
Stevie
talk a little bit more about their work and talk a little bit about the work.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. We're doing this live, and I'm trying to figure out how I can get them. I'm screen sharing, but they get a very small version of what you'll actually see up here. So we're just fixing that. That's fine, Jeff.
Is that? It almost worked. All right. Well, then I'll just run it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So who attended the barn raising that just happened this past weekend?
That's fine.
Yeah, that was so much fun. So we went down to LumCon, and I will now let you speak.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm just going to talk a little bit. How many here have heard of Public Lab, or how many here have not heard of Public Lab before? That's a better question. Okay, so there's just a few of you. So I'll go through this and then introduce John to talk a little bit about the Open Water Project. But just for those of us who haven't really experienced too much with Public Lab, I'm just going to go over a little introduction. So we work to use inexpensive do-it-yourself techniques and seek to change the way people see the world in environmental, social, and political terms. And we're interested in new ways to promote action, intervention, and awareness through participatory research model. So essentially, we got started in response to the BP oil spill. We saw that there was a big lack of essentially data available, visual data, for us to actually see what was going on the ground. And this, you know, we all knew that there was oil washing up on shore, but it wasn't something that, you know, the clarity that you could see here really didn't give a lot of visual data. And we really felt that people should be more empowered to collect these resources. So the first technology that Public Lab worked to develop was actually an aerial photography, aerial imagery tool, alongside a map stitching component, which allows you to take your images just from a camera and stitch them together to create a map with much higher resolution than what was available at the time. So with Public Lab, we see the problems with environmental science and health and research is that they're expensive, they're limited to the hands of experts, they lag in knowledge between experts and people on the ground, and people on the ground oftentimes don't have access to and own the data. They don't understand how it's made, and also the issue that industry has a far greater capacity to collect and generate data than people do. So the civic science approach to environmental health and monitoring is something that we really support. It's community-oriented, community-owned. The tools can be adopted and spread in an open-source fashion. And it supports public exploration and investigation of environmental issues. So locals, in a sense, are regarded as experts. So how does this work? Essentially, just sort of going over the basics when we're talking about, for example, the aerial imagery tools, you're using your own home goods, or you're using something that you could find at Radio Shack to create your own environmental monitoring tools and resources. So here, for example, we're using a kite, a camera you can buy online for, you know, $50 now, a soda bottle rig, and essentially you now have access to this aerial data that before you maybe were relying on flyovers to collect for you. Now you can go out and collect on your own. So just to take that a little bit further, this is an example of a map that was made here on the Gulf Coast. But the neat thing about Public Lab tools is that once they're put in the hands of people, people really decide and define how the tools are used. So this is an example of a map that was used to for a demonstration in Jerusalem, and she really can show you, if you zoom in on it, how many people were there, where the demonstration took place. So essentially explaining that although these tools are originally created for one purpose, they'll often be repurposed and used in a lot of different ways. The other really neat thing about it is not all of these tools are actually the same. So especially when we're talking about water quality issues, people are going to have different approaches, different water quality issues that they're interested in discovering. So you'll find around that there are actually local versions of these tools. And so we'll be making a coquise tonight, which is a little water quality monitoring device Don will talk about, and mine will probably look different than yours. And that's okay, and that's really cool. And the fact that they're open source and available for people to use and develop and change is what makes this so progressive and interesting, and really adaptable in terms of the way that we develop research. So essentially, Public Lab, we're a community that's supported by a nonprofit. The direction of the nonprofit is driven by the community itself. So ways to get involved: we maintain an interactive wiki where people can post questions, post their research, and reach out to others. And the wiki also provides access to mailing lists. So if you're interested, for example, in water quality, like what we're talking about tonight, you can go onto publiclab.org and sign up for the water quality mailing list and really have access to a lot of people, a lot of ideas, and that, you know, share your ideas, your questions, and it's a really great way to communicate about issues. So we also support web-based platforms for a lot of our tools and technologies. And we really, including, for example, like the mapping one I was mentioning is mapmitter.org. And then where we work, we really have participants all over the world. Locally, we have a chapter here in the Gulf Coast, and I invite everybody here who's now a Gulf Coast Public Lab member. Thank you. No, but really, it's a great way to be interactive, and events just like this is something that really builds the community and helps us interface and develop these technologies and understand and identify environmental issues. So essentially, we work to promote environmental exploration, which leads to technical development and applies and is real and applicable in our communities. So this is an example of some of our infrared technology that was being developed and the various stages you've seen it go through. We help to connect people facing environmental justice issues with community organizers, researchers, activists, people facing other issues through the community online and in person. And ultimately, this brings people to the table to think creatively about problems and the best ways that we can approach them. And with that note, yeah, there are various ways to get involved. The topic-based mailing list that I mentioned, also the regional list, so the Gulf Coast list here, and just essentially start experimenting with science and tell us about it. And that's how we really work to build our knowledge. So a little bit about us, and I'd love to pass it over to Don Blair to talk about Public Lab Open Water Project and what we'll be doing tonight.
And I should stand here for the.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So let's see.
It's okay. They're cool.
Wait, I want to jump into the infinite stream.
It's okay. It's just slowly thinking about. Alrighty.
Are we still?
Yeah, you're good. I'm just gonna make this not distracting.
Okay.
Press power button again.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Hello. So I come from a physics background. I heard about Public Lab while deep in the woods in Amherst at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. And a bunch of my friends and I started to play around with electronics. I wasn't doing electronics in my physics work, but I had friends who were doing really cool things. And so I got excited about that. And who here has heard of the Arduino? Wow. Okay. So for folks who haven't heard, maybe you'll soon hear more. But in the realm of electronics, people have gotten really excited about trying to take this open source approach, that the same approach that Stevie was talking about, that Public Lab is applying to environmental monitoring, to make the electronics really understandable, open, bless you, and make them customizable so you can sort of do whatever you want with them. And the Arduino was a project that really took off. There are a lot of artists and other folks who don't necessarily have a deep background in electronics who've been sharing information with one another online now for over 10 years, I guess. So there, if you type into YouTube, oh God, people are seeing up my nose. Okay. If you type into YouTube Arduino and pretty much anything you can think of, like Arduino doorbell, Arduino depth gauge, you'll find probably a video explaining where some geek is explaining how they just made this thing and here's how it works. And it's this really cool community. So and that's how I sort of see the Public Lab community in an environmental context. So that's where I was at, and I started to tinker around with Public Lab tools and try to contribute online. And at one point, as I was learning more about the Arduino and electronics, I got connected with folks who were interested in small to medium scale agriculture, and we thought that it would be neat to use these devices to monitor soil moisture and so on. So some friends arranged for a dinner where I was sitting with a bunch of organic farmers, and I started to describe this fantasy version of what we could do with the electronics, and they didn't really like the idea. They thought, you know, if I've got a small farm, I can go out and I can feel and see whether my soil is so it still might be a useful idea. But that night, there was at the table a hydrologist, and he said, actually, in hydrology, we use these water quality monitors that seem a lot more expensive than the sort of things that you're talking about. And furthermore, and I don't want to call out any particular company, but there's a probe in that box that is a very commonly used probe, and it does seem like it costs more than the sort of things that we could put together using an Arduino or that kind of hobby electronics approach. And but sometimes you can say, okay, with these sensors that cost a lot of money, well, what you're paying for is the research and development that went into that at some point. So a lot of engineers put a lot of time into making these things. And that's something that if you have a wide community of folks working on these things, that research energy is distributed in the community. So that's sort of how you can make these things lower cost, and that's how a lot of open source software and hardware works. But more worrisome in a way than the cost is the fact that a lot of these devices are in their design and even in the data that they output, they're proprietary. So they'll use, so some of these hydrologists that I got to meet, they said they've been spending years trying to hack the data format that comes off of these devices so they don't need to use proprietary software. And in one case, so in Amherst, I started working with folks at the middle school using Arduinos in their classrooms. And they told me that they bought one of these devices for a project, and they started to deploy it. And then the teacher who had installed the software necessary to get the data off on her laptop left the school system, and they didn't have the money to buy another software license. So they had the device, and they had all the cables, but they weren't able to get the data off, and that seemed silly. So we've designed several versions of this, but so for those folks who know what an Arduino is, it's just this little board that has a tiny brain and some inputs and outputs, and you're able to program it to measure things and output things and control things, and there are all sorts of cool things you can do with it. And people have made attachments for it that allow you to store data on a micro SD card. They allow you to keep track of the time. If the Arduino sort of turns off, there'll be a clock ticking that it can reference. And so what we basically did was talk to these hydrologists and we tried to figure out what would be a good device for water quality monitoring. And so we came up with this idea, the Riffle, which is, for those who know about an Arduino, it's just an Arduino. Let me see, I have a version of this. It's just an Arduino that has, I put something somewhere. Oh yeah, so people who are really excited about electronics walk around with fishing tackle boxes like this and then have trouble getting through airports. But, and I actually, so when Matt Lippincott from Public Lab and I went down to DC to demo at their Advanced Tech Demo Day, the Riffle, I walked in with a backpack full of this stuff, and I needed to go through the scanner, and things escalated to the point where I forget what Matt referred to it as, but there's some standard thing that security folks are told that they're supposed to put their hand on their holster and lock their arm and start circling you. I don't know what that's referred to, but I started to get that behavior. But I eventually made it through. So yeah, so there are all these bits and pieces that you, oh yeah, so here's an Arduino. Here is another Arduino in a different form. And the cool thing about this community is everyone posts all the plans and designs online. And I really don't know that much about electronics. But by following tutorials, I was able to copy paste the schematic from this version. And I'll send these around so you can see. But the schematic from this version, I took the parts that I wanted, and then I took one of these guys. Let's see, all sorts of things. Oh yeah, so I took one of these guys, which is another thing that somebody manufactures, open source, so all the schematics are available online, that allows you to take data off of this and record it to a micro SD card in whatever format you want. And so I took that micro SD card and I put it next to the brain of this thing on this board. So there's the micro SD holder, and there's the brain now. And then there's another, yeah, oh, this is like as if I planned it. There's a board that keeps track of the time. And so I put that on the back. So there's a coin cell battery to keep track of the time when the thing goes to sleep to save power. And then the other thing to add is, this is all planned. This is all the order of things. Where is it? Well, so then I added a little board, and this is all in conversation on Public Lab with other folks, that connects to this. And as per the request of this hydrologist, it allows you to measure temperature, conductivity, and ultimately depth. And so we think we can probably manufacture and distribute these for under $200, maybe closer to $100. But the parts will probably be around $40. And if you know what you're doing, you actually you get the boards manufactured somewhere, and you just sort of mail order that. You download the schematics and the board layout, and you get that manufactured. And then you actually at some point just put the pieces on the board and you put it in a toaster oven. That's what I've been doing. And that solders the stuff on the board. And you need to label that toaster oven afterwards that this was used to make electronics, because you don't want to make toast in that afterwards. And so people can assemble this. So we've talked to people around the world who are interested in this, and in some cases we've said, it might be more economical for you to order all the parts, build them yourselves, and then maybe sell them yourselves. If you're in Brazil, maybe the economics of ordering these electronics and taxes and so on are prohibitive. So it's a really neat way of distributing research, distributing monitoring. So okay. So what is that about? So I'm going to jump all over the place, but okay. So then what happened? I wasn't sure what the design well, and I should say there are tons. It's not when I'm saying I wasn't sure. I collectively, Public Lab, was not sure. I mean, these are conversations with lots of people on Public Lab where I tweak something and I add this, and then someone says, I don't know if I would do that. I think, in my experience, you should actually have that thing over there because this thing needs to be close to that other thing. And okay, and I tweak it, and that's sort of the way people collaborate around these things. So one of the designs we decided, so how are you going to put this in the water? So the reason this has the shape it has is, if you could imagine that this is empty, you have an empty reused, an empty recycled water bottle, and this has been designed to fit inside the mouth of it. So you put batteries in there, you put this inside, and then you take your conductivity and temperature probe, and you stick it through the cap. I think I have an example somewhere here. And that is your monitor. That's your water quality monitor that eventually we hope will do temperature, conductivity, depth, and then some optical measurements like turbidity. Yeah, oh yeah, exactly. So you poke a hole. So this is a thermistor that does temperature. We'll be playing with those in a second. So that's the idea. This goes through there, and that's what we were calling the riffle. So when I was at the EPA doing this demo with Matthew, we were trying to figure out how do we explain how this thing works, the circuitry that measures conductivity. So the part of this that measures conductivity, which is at this point an attachment, we separated that out and we put it on what they call a breadboard. So So we took the bits and pieces of the electronics, and we did what you do when you're prototyping one of these things. You put the electronics on one of these breadboards and hooked up a battery, and we put it on the table at the demo day. And we had who here has heard of the field of echomimetics? Because we made it up, and I'm going to tell you about it. So. Okay, that would be worrisome, but maybe not. It'd be good to know what it really is. So we had two water containers on the table, and we had added some salt to one of them, but they looked identical. And we had this thing on the breadboard, and the way that we measure conductivity. So I'll sort of explain this in a little more detail in a second, but it was. It outputs a signal that just oscillates, and the oscillation, the frequency of that oscillation is proportional to the conductivity of the water. So we were trying to figure out how are we going to demonstrate this. Maybe we'll have an LED that blinks at a certain rate, but the frequency was too high to even see. So we stuck a speaker on it, and it turned out that when you put the speaker on it, we had this setup where we have this. You'll see how crazy it looks, but it's a breadboard with a bunch of wires sticking out of it that you'll be building in a second to some end. And we had that on the table, and we had the probe that looked something like this, and it really did look kind of frightening. And these people with no background in electronics were coming through, and we said, okay, why don't you tell us which one of these has the greater amount of dissolved solids in it. So with some trepidation, they would pick up the probe and they would stick it in the first container of water, and it would kind of go, you'll see, and then they would stick it in the next container of water, and it would go, and I think that one has more dissolved solids. That's weird, because I didn't say anything about frequency relationship with conductivity. So it took a while for that to sink in, but that just seems so cool that someone with no background, and we haven't stipulated anything about how the electronics works, and we could very well have designed it so it had the other relationship, but for some reason lots of humans seem to think that more means higher pitch. Okay, I have to do the echomimetics thing. Wait, okay, I have to do this. So, who here knows about the Kiki Booba effect? Yeah, because you were at the barn raising up there. And I'm sorry, I had some beer at the barn raising, so I was telling everybody about the Kiki Booba effect. So here's the deal. For you at home, I will show you too. Okay, do not say your answer out loud. So there is some language in the world. Oh, already recognition. So there's some language in the world in which one of these is referred to as. Oh, sorry for people at home. There is some language in the world in which one of these is referred to as Kiki, and one of them is referred to as Booba. Has everyone made their choice?
Yeah.
How many people think that this is Kiki? Yeah, exactly. That says something. Anyway, so that's very much part of what Public Lab is interested in doing, is finding ways of making the devices that are useful to us. I mean, how many people are really have always been really excited about electronics? Not a lot of you, but it turns out that for the stuff that you've been talking about tonight, the things that you want to monitor, electronics it's really useful. So we have to find some way of engaging with that. And so that's one of the things we're trying to do here. Well, and I don't know if people have at home have been able to see this display over here. It's what you can send photos later. So I've never seen this happen, and I think Miriam just invented a whole thing here. When I have done workshops like this, what I've done, so at Emerson College, I did the workshop that we're about to do, and I showed up late with a big box, and I dumped it on the table, and it looked like this. Had I used this, I don't know if you see this, but this is like artisanal, gourmet. I mean, Miriam plated all of the electronics. And when I was being asked how we should label it, I found myself speaking with a French accent and sort of saying that, well, tonight we have on offer some capacitors, some 10 microfarad capacitors. And I'm not trying to do a French accent, but
Matthias labeled each of the things.
They're really beautiful. So that, I think, should happen now at electronics workshops. Like, this is, I mean, look at this. I don't know if people at home can see this. Look at this. These are thermistors. You've never seen thermistors like this before. Cheers. Whatever. That's amazing. So anyway, and what Miriam did in the realm of electronics here, with making it look approachable, it feels like the audio data format does that for the kinds of things we want to collect, the typical things that we want to collect. So it turns out that relationship between conductivity and frequency, where the higher the conductivity, the higher the frequency, it's sort of this intuitive relationship. It works the same way for light sensors. The more light, the higher the frequency. So if you're measuring turbidity, you would see that, when it gets cloudy, it goes, which just kind of feels right. It works the same way for temperature. We'll be playing with that tonight. So as the temperature goes up, the frequency goes up. So it's just really neat, and it gets better. Am I running out of time? But it gets better. It gets better. Okay, so the short version is, if we encode this data as audio, the cool thing is that everyone here, I bet, has a device on them, or has a device near them, or in their lives, that will digitize audio input. For some reason, humans have decided to make that completely ubiquitous, that infrastructure. So if we have this output as audio, we have all of the analog to digital converters like on our persons now to do that. And recently, the same folks that were working on the Arduino and some visual display languages, processing, if you're familiar with it, have tweaked that so it works in any browser on any platform and can take in audio and analyze it. So we can make a software platform that will take in the audio data from these water quality sensors, and editing that and contributing to that will be as more or less as easy as editing HTML and JavaScript, and actually easier than that. And that whole community that was working on making programming accessible for people, we can leverage all of that. And we might not have time right now for me to go through this, but they've set it up so that in the browser you can change the code and see the results immediately. So it's not like distributing an iPhone app or an Android app. It's actually kind of hard to program. You can't just say copy save with those apps and then edit them and then redistribute them, but we can do that now. So there are lots of other exciting things to talk about that I'll ramble about during the workshop. But the goal here is, or if you choose to accept it, is to build this breadboarded circuit that we were demoing at the Advanced Tech Demo Day, that we're calling the Coquille, and I don't know if Lily is online, but Lily Bowie, she decided, she suggested that we call it the Coquille because there's a frog called the Coquille that's really annoying. It sounds really annoying, I guess, for folks, but it's cute. And this sounds kind of, oh, you like the sound? Okay, or some people like it. COQUI. Yeah, impossible, yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I think we'll just start to lead you through the construction of this. You might get a little frustrated. Yeah. But I think in the end you'll feel really good.
Yeah. Something just came to mind. First off, this is a Google Live Hangout, and you're going to be like training the camera on your MacBook tablet, like a live YouTube video. You can pause and rewind and stuff.
That would be good, but
That's a Google Live Hangout you've been talking to.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, we're trying to figure out how to do it, and I think what we decided was that maybe the fastest way is if we all get the stuff, we work in groups of like 2 or so, because we have about 10 kits, so we have to like divide into groups of 2, and I'm just going to lead you through the steps, like connect this wire to this place, and then we'll give you the batteries, and we hope it works. Yeah. But so maybe I can do that with the Google Hangout looking at me. That would be cool if I could do that. Yeah, and if we display that there, yeah, that would be cool. That's a good idea. Yeah. Yep, that'd be cool. That's very cool. Okay. Sorry, that was a big ramble, but I don't wanted to say that the riffle we have plans to try to make things like depth sensors, conductivity, temperature, turbidity. And we're going to talk about that Thursday night more and like sort of brainstorm around what that would look like and try to have some demos of that. This is more to get your feet wet in electronics with this stuff and to start to think about what you would do with this kind of like accessible device. We're going to try to make a circuit board version of this soon. But anyway, we'll have fun with this. Okay. Yeah.
So if you haven't already signed up, so if you're having fun tonight, Thursday is going to be sort of another, it's going to be part 2 of the series. So we still have some slots left, so please RSVP if you plan to attend on Thursday.
Is anyone allergic to water? Okay, because we have to drink a little bit, I think, to make the container that we're going to use here, and I'll have to cut them. But so you're going to have to sip a little water. Sorry. Okay, cool. Yeah, right. No, actually, certain parts will touch the water.
So, do you want me to come up on, or how do you want to?
Yeah.
I got the batteries away. So we're gonna hand out the batteries after we check the circuit to make sure we don't blow it up.
So we have 1 hour for this activity, and then we'll wrap it up with a closing discussion.
So there are a bunch of things up here. So sorry, I'll just say this to make your lives marginally better. Everything up here, if you could take one of each. Oh, okay. Actually, should we do that thing where we count off and we form groups like that? Okay. 1, 2. Oh, sorry. Actually, we're just gonna. I think we're just. How many people do we have?
You have a couple of groups of 3. 3 sounds great.
3? Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
That's not gonna work, Tom.
Great.
Yeah, no. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
3 groups, that's like 12. How many copies do you want to make?
Oh yeah, what am I talking about? Right. That's math. Yeah, we have 10 devices.
Okay, let's count by 10.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. That's great. Not your time, right? Oh, you want? Yeah, we could do that too.
So you want like 2 appointees from each table or something to come up?
2 representatives from each table. Please come up. Yeah. Isn't it? Okay, yeah, okay, so I was just going to say, what you need is one of each of these, except for this, you need both.
Maybe 13 or 14, just for.
So like one red, one.
Don't worry about the color.
How's it going, guys? All right. You want to look at some of this stuff? Oh, that way. So I'll make you dizzy. But
Yeah. Like 15 of those.
do you want me to get this?
Different colors?
Yeah, you want different colors.
Different.
So
one of each.
One of everything.
Are we getting one of each color?
No,
Just one LED?
One of all.
And then this is what Don was working on before. That's like the best. So we're gonna go and make cookies, and you can look at, I think Scott Eustace posted in here on where the Koki design is on the Public Lab page, but you could also just search Koki on Public Lab, and that'll give you basically the layout of what we're gonna go ahead and make tonight. So it might be a little bit tough. I can put this at a table, and you can watch some people make the cookies, and I can turn the volume up if you guys want to talk. But or if you'd rather, we can just end it here, and you can try to make a cookie some other time at home. You let me know.
Can I'll have to display on the projector the step-by-step, I think. I don't have to.
You do?
I could,
okay.
It'd be cool if I could.
So we need the computer.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
But that way they can see, they'll be able to see the step-by-step.
Okay, we can do that.
Do you think we can do that? Or can we, yeah, I think I can hold it up as I do each step.
Yeah, I can screen share the steps, actually.
Yeah, cool.
So where do I find those, Don? Well, I could just, it's easy to do. So do you have the steps on the computer, you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, they're online? Sure. All right, so we'll screen share the steps as people go through and make them. Don's dumping water on electronics right now. So where do I find them?
So if you go to publiclab.org/wiki/cookie.
Okay. COQUI.
Yep. And then it's at the bottom of the page. There's something about like build your own cookie, which maybe should be near the top, but if you zoom down. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Yeah, cool. So that
and this is all you need?
Yeah, and if you scroll down, as we go down, then it'll be like, dude. So I'll just be scrolling. I'll be going
okay,
through this
cool. Let me screen share with everybody,
okay,
and then
yeah.
then you can take this.
Okay, perfect. Can you just display this on the screen, maybe? Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll walk through the steps of building cookies.
Hey, let me have your attention while they're doing all that stuff. I'll explain this how it works. This is the red bar. It's got on the, if you hold it up like this, you've got on the left and the right two columns that are marked plus and minus. And we have red and blue lines on it. All of those, including the colored marks, are connected in a column. you have a column all the way down that's a negative, a column all the way down that's a positive. On the other side, a column all the way down, all the way down that's positive. Okay, those are separate. Now you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. See those? Okay. Those are horizontally connected, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 connections on one side, and then there's a space between, and then 5 connections on the other side. F is not connected to E, for example. But A, B, C, D, and E are connected together. That's in the horizontal row, right? You have a whole bunch of horizontal rows with 5 connections on each one of them, and some vertical columns that are connected on the outside. That's some questions on that. That's important.
I can show you the battery holder that I melted this afternoon.
I wasn't going to bring that up.
Oh, but anyway, nothing terrible will happen.
You might get some magic smoke out of this.
Yeah. So, okay, so can oh gosh, can you? Okay, can everyone sort of see the screen, sort of? If you have, yeah, okay. I think this will work. I think this will work. But if it doesn't work, then we'll figure it out. So, in case you're, oh God, what did I do? Oh, you have it. Okay. Public lab. Oh, see the cute frog? Oh, I'm in the way of the. Okay. Okay. So publiclab.org/wiki/Coqui is where all of this information is. We're going to try to be keeping it there. And that is the beautiful object that you'll be constructing this evening. That's another photo of it. And there's Katie Gradowski listening to it. And there's some videos demoing it. And then down at the bottom, there is building your own Coqui. And when I click there, which I had done before, I get to this, which is our first design for what the Coqui is like here. So it has ingredients. You should have most of the ingredients there, hopefully all of them. There's a schematic, and if you understand how these work, I think there's one, or we can hand those out. And that for some people, that works better for them to just follow this, and I can explain how that works. But I think what we're going to try to do is just follow this step by step with these photos, and I'll just describe each step, and you just follow along. Can everyone see that photo pretty well? Okay, so there's a thing that looks like a little bug. Everyone hold up your little bug there. Okay, so that's where all the action is in this device. It's a device called the 555 timer. It's been in electronics for like 20 years. It's really cheap. It's like 20 cents, and all it does is output an oscillating signal. So in this schematic, what they call a square wave, so it just goes on, off, on, off. And in this schematic, this is the 555 timer, and you have to connect it to power. That's what VCC, that's the way they refer to power in these circles. So that'll be the positive, going to connect to the positive rail, which is, we're going to use the red, there's a red line on the breadboard. So that's, we'll call that the positive rail. I might be using words wrong in electronics. You should tell me, because I'm not that great at electronics. And then there's the ground, so that'll be the black wire that's coming out of the battery, and that will be the blue line on the breadboard. Labeled negative. So you have to have electricity flowing through this thing, so we have to connect it to power and ground. And the other part of this circuit that is where a lot of action is happening is the resistor. And in our case, rather than using a resistor, we are using the water. And so the way this 555 timer is designed so that you can choose a resistor and a capacitor and output whatever frequency you want. And that allows you to build all sorts of things in electronics, and that's why it had been so popular. So what the trick, which we found a group online, Practical Maker, I think was the name. I have to make sure that we attribute this to them. They had come up with this idea of instead of just setting in a particular frequency, put some probes in water, and then the frequency is going to be related to, it's going to go as 1 over the resistance, which means that it goes directly as the conductivity. So, so here we go. Step 1, 555 times. Ooh, yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you, thank you. Hmm? Yeah. Woo. So you will notice that your little bug-like 555 timer has a little indentation somewhere on it, a little tiny little circle, which I don't know how well you can see it here, but it's on the bottom right in this diagram. So place this little bug-like thing in the middle of the breadboard across this gap here. So across this gap in the middle, so that that little circle is in the bottom right. And
it doesn't.
Yeah.
You just need to remember where's the bottom. Yeah. Because that's pin number 1, and you don't want to. It's important that that's pin number 1.
Do you have extras? Dan, do you wanna wander around? Yeah. And I'll wander around too. But I'll And maybe the representatives of each group could raise their hands when they're done. Oh, you done? Okay. Done. Any problems? Okay, no problems. Oh yeah. Wow. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Now we are going to connect. Okay. So the next thing to notice is that, okay, now that we've all gotten oriented the same way there, the way this world works. So in this case, on the schematic, we've represent. So each pin on these devices has a certain purpose, and so you just need to keep track of which pin is which. So the way that we've oriented the chip, the way the numbering goes on these pins, is with that little circle down. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You won't see any numbers there, but that's how we're referring to them. So our first step is going to be to connect pin. Wait, what is our first step? I just want to make sure. Okay. Connect pin number 4.
Please make it look similar to that. It'll help us make sure that everything's wired right. I mean, there's a gazillion ways to do it, but just similar to that.
Oh, I did.
Someone just pulled up the smartphone. Does everyone have one of these on the table? Does that'll help you figure out which pins?
Oh, yeah.
That works, but
Okay, does everyone feel that they're sort of oriented as to like what pins or what numbers, and yeah? Okay. Okay, so everybody okay with pin 4 to power? And again, if you notice, I mean, so the whole concept here is that these rows are all connected electrically. So anything that's in one of those rows, they're all in the same node, and these are connected vertically. Don't get anxious also if it's not working. I mean, we'll have fun with it. This is fun. This is fun. I'm in the way. Ha! Okay. Okay. So that was pin number 4 to power, and the next step is pin number 8 to power. So pin number 8 is the bottom left, and make sure like in this diagram that you connect to the same side of the board, the same power. Are you guys starting to get the hang of it a little bit? Anybody who's not, like Dan will fix it.
The people that are getting ahead, you're on your own.
Yeah, yeah. If you make it look like the pictures, then that'll be good. So now the next step is pin 2 to pin 6.
Pin 2 to pin 6.
Yeah. So pin number 2 to pin number 2 to pin number 6.
Oh, yeah. We don't know that means. What is this?
Fail early and often, I think is what they say. Okay, are we all good? 2 to 6, okay. Okay, now here's a tricky thing. You have with you a speaker, and what you want to do is connect pin 3 to the speaker and then to ground. And I think what I did here, well, so one way to do that is to count up to pin number 3 and have the speaker go from some place along that row, pin number 3, all the way to ground.
What's the negative?
To the negative.
To the blue. So we got to bend it that right. A little bit.
So.
I'll clean it if you've got paper on the end of it.
Yeah, scrape the paper off. But I would say, okay, what? So here's the thing, though. These little legs on these we found are really fragile. So what you could do, if you're scared about bending it and breaking it, is stick it in somewhere else on the board, and then go from pin 3 to one of those rows, and then the other row to ground. And that might be more robust.
Maybe.
Yeah, thank you.
That's 3 to the ground.
It doesn't. Yeah, sir. Yeah.
Does it matter which end?
No. Yeah, so the is everybody good? Everybody good? Okay, so the only consideration I forgot to mention is that we're going to be sticking other things in row 3. So you probably don't want to have it connected right up against the chip and then all the way to the negative because you're covering all the, but you still can get around it. Yeah, okay, everybody's good. Okay. Oh God, what did I do? Oh yeah, this is for the resistor. Okay. Okay. Okay, so so now we're going to, in the schematic at this point, we need to connect pin 3 to a resistor, and the resistor is going to be the water. So what we need to do is take a wire from pin 3, so somewhere in that row, somewhere along the row, so in this case it's this green wire, pull it from pin 3 and bring it down to some arbitrary row down on the breadboard. And that's going to be, that's in preparation to connect it to a probe.
Well, we're still going to use the photo resistor.
Yeah, so we'll start with the photoresistor, I guess, and then we'll switch in the water probe, yeah. Okay, everybody good? Okay. Yeah. Everybody good? So the next thing is pin number 2. Do the same thing with it. So you go from pin 2, but choose a row right below the other arbitrary row that you chose for pin 3. If that makes sense. So before you were going from this is the green wire, pin 3, all the way down to some row, and now you're doing pin 2 all the way down to some other row. So a row right below. So it should, I don't know if you can see, but it should look like this picture where it's one above the other. Okay, now we have it. Yeah. Now you have a little yellow capacitor. Oh crap! It's not gonna work. Can you try? So the plan here, if you can make it happen, is to get that little capacitor to go from the bottom row that you brought that wire down to. Sorry, excuse me. Let me say it more explicitly. That should be pin 2. Pin 2. Yeah, exactly. Pin 2 should connect down here, and then that same row towards the far end there, if you take that capacitor, if you can stretch it across so it goes between the last pin there and it goes into the ground row there, the blue one. Does that fit? No. You can use the bigger one, but the yellow one is actually better to begin with, I think. Yeah. It's more annoying, but it's better. Yeah. So please choose the yellow one to begin with. But not the yellow one, right? Right. Is everybody okay with that? Yeah? So then this is not in the instructions. We forgot to add, but it's in the wiring diagram. We forgot to add in the instructions. You need to connect pin 1 to ground. Bam! Everybody good? No? It's too short? Okay. You can jump to the yellow. You could put the yellow guy down like a.
There's a preferred side to doing this, and then it's the A side. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, thank you for that. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so the is everybody good? Okay. Instead of starting with conductivity, we're going to start with the light sensor because it's sort of easier to play with it first to make sure your circuit's working. Do you have the photocell or the photoresistor at hand? Yes. So what you're going to do is take it and put it. So one leg is connected to one of those two wires that came down from the top, like pin 2, and the other leg is connected to the wire that was connected to pin 3. Sorry? Right, yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah, you're just trying to hammer home. Yeah. I should probably redo that diagram, but Stevie, do you know, are we able to turn the lights off in this room? So we, at some point, maybe we can do that. I think it's going well. We have it till 8:30, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're going okay.
Right. I'm
That's
sad
kind of
that I'm not
amazing.
participating. I'm trying to catch up on email.
Oh yeah, yeah, understandable. Everybody good? Sorry? But by the way, so with this size battery, the worst that can you're not even going to get shocked or something. The worst that can happen is that there's a short circuit and the batteries are going to start to get warm, and then maybe the plastic will melt a little bit. And I don't even know if we can destroy these chips, but the chips are 20 cents, so don't worry about getting hurt or hurting anything really. It's probably like the pointy parts of the wires are probably the most dangerous part of it. Like, don't poke yourself with a pointy part of the wire. Okay, so if all has gone well, then if we take the battery, oh gosh, in what form do you have your batteries? Do you have like little terminals on them? No, you just have bare wires, right? Okay, do you think that'll go?
Okay, so now the fun part is you put the batteries in the right. You have batteries. We have batteries. We have batteries.
No, here's batteries.
Oh, we have not let you have batteries yet.
We're going to do this one at a time, unfortunately. We really don't want
and I'll just say that while you're getting your batteries, so right now we're doing the photocell, and if it works, it should be kind of fun because when you'll see. Well done. Wow, okay, that's great. It's going to be so awful the first group where it doesn't work.
I'm casting a shadow on the photo resistor right here. And as the light changes, something is happening. And the sound.
So I think we're at the point. Stevie, are we at the point now where so maybe we can walk around with a laptop and show people what's going on? Does that make sense with the Google Hangout?
Yeah, I'm not sure who's on here, but we can see who's stuck with us.
It'd be really, I guess. But are you recording this?
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Like if we get some video.
Looks like we have one
weird
viewer.
Person who's still excited. It might be you. Okay.
I'm not sure who it is.
So if we carry this around, we could show people getting success.
Too, so.
Okay, cool. Hey, yours works too? We got two of them. Is yours working? Yeah.
Batteries over here.
Oh, you're not allowed to have batteries yet.
Like we're children, we have to wait.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way Dan's handling it. You want to describe your feelings at this point in advance
accomplishment?
Of the, yeah.
Feels like college paid off, maybe.
Yeah, right.
We'll see if we get a sound.
Okay. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
There we go. We're on camera.
Yeah, it works.
Nice.
No, that's it. I'm totally gonna make an Instagram.
Oh, I didn't get it back.
Instead of like
Is it going the right way?
Oh my God, it works. This is amazing.
Yes.
This is not the way it went at Emerson College.
Red.
Are you good? Did it work? Are we there?
We're still wet.
I bet you're
We're at the dry.
It's kind of fun that you're going around with a bowl of batteries.
Yeah.
Let's go. It's better than Halloween.
Red positive. Chimney.
Black
on blue. No, nothing's broken.
Right. Go for it. Yes.
So if you've got it working, the other thing you can start to do, but I think it'll be fun if you can just wait a second. I think it'll be fun for us all to do something that I don't know. I was going to turn off the lights and then turn on.
I don't hear anything. Shoes work? Do the battery.
You good?
Yeah.
All right. So how do you feel about your working sensors?
We feel over the moon about them.
Over the moon.
I'm quite excited about
Yeah.
this, actually.
Who are we talking to?
I think you're talking to. Well,
I
this
see
is also being
Scott
recorded.
Eustace.
Yeah,
is on
Scott
there.
Eustace.
Hi, Scott Eustace.
Yeah, we love you, Scott Eustace. Wait, what's going on here?
We got tired of the high pitched
That is a problem. Wait, what are you going to do with this new technology that you've now learned how to build? It's not clear, right?
We're not sure yet. We're waiting for you to tell us what we're going to do.
Almost? Almost got batteries? Huh? Did it work? Did it work? Did it work? Is it working?
I don't think so. All right. Yours making a noise?
Well, we copied yours, so.
Oh no! Oh no!
Bad mistake, buddy. We have content.
Okay, we'll diagnose that. We'll diagnose that. Okay, so both of theirs don't work. Let's see. And
I want to record at the same time.
So Dan, I think we need to diagnose the problem with theirs.
All right.
You need batteries, right? Oh, they got skipped. They got skipped for batteries. Okay, so all.
Maybe our batteries bad.
Did you blame it on the battery? I'm going to see the. Oh, can I check the schematic? I'll just sort of run through it real quick. Okay, so let's see. So okay, this is
Take it off power.
This is live debugging, troubleshooting, exactly. Okay, so the way I go. Oh, wait.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh, false hope.
So,
fuck you, battery compartment.
you're on live TV. So, so
that out, please.
8 goes to power. 6 goes to pin 2. Right. 8 goes to power. Is that right?
Right.
Yep. Okay. You following this too?
Yeah.
Okay. 4 should go to power. Yep. 3 should have the speaker going from 3 to ground. Yeah. And it should also let's see. 3 should also 3 should also go down to one leg of the photoresistor.
Correct.
Yep. 2 should, in addition to going to 6 that we checked before, 2 should go down to the capacitor. Is it the other leg of the photoresistor?
Correct.
And then that should also go to ground.
Can I just steal everybody's idea?
Oh, one needs to go to ground. That's the trouble. And that's the one thing that I forgot to say.
See, we were listening. Oh, sorry.
No matter which side.
Nice.
Doesn't matter which side of ground.
Nice.
Yeah. Doesn't matter which side of ground.
Yes.
It just has to go to the ground that is connected to the battery there. So yeah, they're good. Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy!
Mother truth.
Yes, and you come on.
Oh! That's how you do it. Yeah. Spinning a turntable. This is 80s hip hop.
Okay.
That's the sound of success, my friends. So
I'm spinning a turntable.
Oh, yeah.
You should get 80s hip hop.
Oh.
Hey Jeff, you got it to work. Spin the turntable.
Probably a long time.
Probably a really long time.
Enough to drive.
I'm just
Long
gonna
enough to drive you insane.
What do you do next? Yeah, it's a far cry from a.
You can pull out the sensor now and start dipping in things, or like replace the sensor with leads. Or...
I stick mine out.
Like water. Yeah. Does that bring up?
Oh, I thought that was the LED.
That's a good thing.
No, do it.
Wait, did they don't water?
But for the others, the idea
What do you say with the special box?
those two pins where the photoresistor is.
Yep, stick it out.
Those wires are going down there. If you can take this object and it has two pins on the screw terminal.
Yeah.
And if you can put them in the same place, like on the same rows that the photoresistor pins are, instead of the photoresistor, that might not be, that'll be more or less easy depending on how you put the wires in there. But if you can move the wires in
Magnet shot.
rows and you can stick this in there.
Correct.
Alternatively, you can put it on some other set of rows and make wires go to that.
Not on power, right?
We're trying to.
Not on power.
Off power. Unplug the battery first. Oh.
And then.
So for example, like I've got this one set up with a photoresistor down there.
Okay.
And what I want to do is get this guy, so this individual, so it is situated across the same 2 rows. And so what I would probably do with this setup here is I would shift everything over a little bit so I can fit this in there. Does that make sense, everyone?
Yeah. With the photo.
Give it a shot. Because what we're doing now is we're going to replace the photoresistor with these probes, and instead of the light, so the way the photoresistor works, as more light falls on it, the resistance goes down. The frequency goes inversely as the resistance, so the frequency goes up. Instead of the photoresistor, we're going to put these probes into water, and as there are more ions in the water, dissolved solids, the resistance goes down because it can conduct more electricity, and that means that the frequency will go up. So what you're going to try to do in the last time that we have here is to replace the photoresistor with this, stick this into the water bottle, and see what noises you get. And then I'm going to come around with salty Cajun seasoning, which will be your contaminant.
We just stick these dudes straight in the water?
Yep. Okay, so what's the photo capacitor again? Which one is that?
This one.
So the tall one.
Pluck that out.
Those 2 lines are exactly what in this order or that order?
I don't think it matters.
They're polarized though. It's like a pair of jumper cables. All right.
Who's doing it? Is it working over there?
Hey, look, they're. These are polarized, right? No. It doesn't matter.
Don't care.
Oh, all right. They look like jumper cables to me. All right.
They are.
They are. Oh.
Yeah. Dunk 'em.
Nope.
You hear the difference?
I hear you.
It's kind of noisy around here. And you may not be making this contact.
There it goes. Oh, I hear it.
All right.
All right. Do we put the photocapacitor back?
No.
Oh, I drank it all.
You drank all the water.
Oh, man.
There, you can use mine.
Oh, I thought we were taking a riffle and we needed a completely empty. Oh.
Bro, you drank it all.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
He's got you.
I thought we needed an empty one for the riffle that we were building. Oh.
There you go. You got one.
In the name of science. There we go, buddy. Oh, it's back to Brooklyn?
Well, Thursday, but I don't think I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Hey.
Raise the bar. Oh, Gerald.
Hey, I'm going to be in Manhattan for this Thanksgiving. You wanted me to catch up and grab a beer?
I do, but I go Sunday to North Carolina.
Okay.
Oh.
Are people making
try,
noises with the water? Really?
Here, I do my signature block
Is that yours?
because that's the cool thing to do.
Bring it.
EBARRY.
Dude, mine is some neat stuff over here.
At gmail.com.
Yo, our battery
Making noises.
Dude, theirs is super loud.
Cool.
All right.
Okay, cool, Charlie.
Pretty good. Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, you too.
Is yours big enough?
Making noise.
So you're going to
Yeah, I don't. By the way, Kooky is actually kind of cute. I didn't find it at all annoying. This is a far cry from it. It's a good name for it, but yeah. Go ahead, it sounds like.
Oh, are you doing it?
Oh no.
Let's get some Chinese.
Oh, yeah.
You might find that you might need to mix the seasoning in for it to really have an effect.
Okay.
Oh, we got any coffee stirs? It might be neat. It's actually you might put the probe in before you add the seasoning, and then
So
you
you
see
get
what
your
happens
difference?
when you Oh, okay, cool. Oh, so yeah.
All right, now
Start the probe.
go for it.
Oh, okay.
You might want
Yeah,
to
sound?
You could use it.
Yeah.
Like,
All right. Oh, we got the cap. We'll just shake it up. Okay. You don't need to stir it.
Oh, you said put it in there, whatever, while the probe's in there.
Oh, while the probe is in it. All right.
that sounds nice.
So what you might do is first keep the probe in there, and then keep adding more
Oh, wow,
seasoning.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You can tell the difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the Kiki Wawa?
Bobo and Kiki.
Kiki Bobo?
Kiki Bobo. If you need more sample containers, like you can play around because you might have seasoned it. Yeah. She's seasoned the hell out of your water already. So if you need to, I can give you more.
Another sample.
Yeah. Is there a different thing? Oh yeah, cool.
Doing it first.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. She's
wow.
gonna blow! We should be evacuating.
This is what happens in your body when you
Oh,
drink
I'll get this one out of the way.
They've been watching.
Show them what we're doing.
Show
them how it's done. Yeah. Anybody need extra water to make more mixing of things with stuff? Okay. So.
What's that sound?
So here's.
We're making gumbo.
How come we're not using these lights anymore?
Oh, okay. Do you have room on your side? Take a video. Or is there?
Play Jingle Bells.
Hey. It changes with depth. Yeah, we have to. So I'm just gonna. They call it the water column. They test it. Scientific. They test it different depths of the column. Yeah. So that's interesting. So it turns out, boy, that's really, people are gonna have headaches. Sorry. It turns out that in order to standardize this measurement, we have to do a couple things. The conductivity of the solution is also affected by temperature. So when people refer to the conductivity, they don't say just conductivity, they say specific conductivity. And what that means is that the conductivity if your sample is at 25 Celsius. So we have to somehow keep track of the temperature, because if you know the temperature, then you can do a calculation to get yourself back to what it would have been if it was 25 Celsius. So as the temperature goes up, the ions move around more, and it makes it easier for them to conduct electricity. So temperature is a problem. The other problem is that those probes that we're putting in there are going to corrode over time. We have to choose something that won't corrode as readily. So we want to use either stainless steel screws. We found some carbon fiber carpeting something matte thing online that's really cheap, which is really amazing. So we could actually use carbon electrodes like the professionals would. Carbon fibers that are really cheap. So we have to be worried about the probe materials. And then the other thing is the spacing of the electrodes. So you can imagine that the further apart they are, the more water you have to go through, and the higher the resistance. So we have to calibrate these sensors so that they're all outputting the same, so we can compare apples to apples. And here's the coolest thing about this. Okay, there's so many cool things about this. We're going to output, we're going to use another 555 timer that is going to output a standard frequency, because we're going to choose a resistor rather than this variable resistor, which is light or conductivity.
we're going to choose a certain resistor so that we output a frequency of, say, 440 hertz. So that'll, what is that? Is that middle C or A? Middle C? So imagine this. Get this. You've noticed that there's a capacitor in the circuit. The frequency goes as 1 over the capacitance. So it goes with 1 over RC. There's also a factor in there that has to do with all of the things that I talked about except temperature, so the spacing of the electrodes, the material. So if we could tweak that, if we could tweak either that or the capacitance, we would change the frequency. The problem here is that everyone has a different prefactor that has to do with how the probes are spaced, because you're going to do it a little different than I, and we're going to have different DIY materials. So the other thing that we can tune is the capacitor. So there are these variable capacitors that exist. So we could turn a knob and we could all calibrate our probes so they're all outputting the same thing. But so the thing that I was doing over the summer initially was taking measurements of the frequency at different prepared salinities. So I just took 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt and then 2/8 teaspoon, whatever, and made all of these preparations. You know what the conductivity is. And then I measured the frequency, I plotted out the curve, I got a slope, and now I have my calibration constant. But all of that is kind of a little mathy. What we can do instead is we output a reference tone, 440 hertz, and we give you like a standard salinity sample. So contact lens solution. If we can get a manufacturer like really cheap packets of contact lens solution, standard, pharmaceutical grade, always the same salinity. We vote. Also, some people, you have one. Woo! Very good. Oh yeah, they come in small vials, yeah. Are they cheap? Yeah, so we need to find some standard. Visine. It turns out that in this world, like in electrochemistry, apparently it's very standard for people around the world to use Perrier because it's a single geologic source. And there was something that happened at that source. I forget, like in the machinery, something got introduced into the works. And so all of these research labs around the world apparently like start, oh, what's happening?
What are you doing? What happened?
Yeah. So it's possible to get these standard samples, and we could probably do it cheaply. It would be neat if we could find something that's ubiquitous. So the cool thing is, we can add the material so that you can plug in headphones. And I did this before I didn't have time to do this. You plug in earbuds, and in your left ear is the reference tone, 440 hertz, and in your right ear is the measurement tone. You put this in the standard sample. And what Matthew Lippincott had pointed out, I mean, which a lot of folks in this community, Jeff and others have been, I should say the original idea for just doing away with the Arduino and just using a circuit was Jeff over there, who's probably working on the next idea. You can then, so it turns out when you have two frequencies going in either ear, there's this binaural beat effect, where as it gets really close, it kind of goes, and then once it matches, then it's you can tell very easily that you've matched. So then you can calibrate all of these sensors so that 440 hertz is always like 1200 microcentimeters. And what's cool about that is that we could listen to this data and know what the conductivity is. There's a project called the Catfish Project at Carnegie Mellon, where in an area that's affected by fracking contamination, people worried about fracking fluid or other fluids that are entering into the groundwater and ending up in their home tap water. They put a conductivity, it's called Catfish, conductivity and temperature in your toilet. Because they put the probes in their toilet tanks, which it turns out is a nice way of sampling the house water. So you put it in a toilet tank. And whenever they would set a threshold, and whenever the conductivity would go about, the specific conductivity would go above a threshold, it would send off an alert. But we could do this with just audio, and you could tune. The cool thing, I think, is that you could tune the level of conductivity by using table salt in your home, and so you'll know, okay, I measure out this much, That's my conductivity threshold. One of the main things here is that there are many different baselines for conductivity. Did I mention what conductivity is? Maybe. Conductivity in water quality, the way I heard it described, it's the equivalent of using a thermometer in human health. It tells you, so if you've got a baseline that you're expecting and you get some spike above that baseline, it tells you that something weird is happening maybe. So if you have your house water, depending on the source, there are various things that can be dissolved in there. And some are good for you. And Perrier might have a lot of nice mineral for your mineral water. But you'll have a baseline for your home, say. And if you listen to this over time, if we use our audio infrastructure or just a speaker every once in a while, you play it like a water quality voice or something. You listen to this over time. If you notice that rather than last week or every week, if I listen to the compressed week of audio, then I know that something weird is happening like on Tuesday. And we can maybe figure out that that's when the fracking, or that's when some company dumps something in the water. So you get this really visceral sense for the water quality. And I don't even want to talk with this. I'm talking too much about the ways that, so we can actually analyze using the photo cell. We can analyze paper strips. And I think we can make them much more accurate. There's this guy from UMass Amherst, a chemist, who showed that if you look at the blue channel of a digital photo of an arsenic testing strip, you do it the right way, you can make it as you can approach laboratory analyses in terms of accuracy, because usually the way you do that is you put this blue paper strip in and you compare it against a rubric visually. So lighting conditions matter and our eyes are different. But we could make a cheap device that would allow you to use a paper strip. We use a cheap gel filter that only allows, say, the blue light through, because in some cases that's what we care about. And we could measure the, say, arsenic or mercury or anything that those paper strips can measure, including urine. So then we can connect to health. It's very exciting. But so what we were going to try to do one night this week is actually connect one of these with an audio jack to a megaphone that we found that has an audio input, and then try to recruit some street musicians and then play it. I overheard you suggest that you might be interested in doing.
Well, I make really complex music.
That's exactly what this would be.
I'm not a street musician.
Oh,
I mean, we could get together again and do something.
Oh, now that I think about it,
maybe we could take a poll and we could figure out who we would want to. I mean, we could do it in this space.
Sure.
We could have a water quality jam, because it would be kind of cool, right? To have a water xylophone where we have water samples from various places. Can I just say So, how are you going to get both temperature and conductivity off this thing in such a way that it's still legible, so you can still understand it? And so, one thing you would do with different audio frequencies. So, we haven't played with the thermistor. So it turns out that the thermistor works the same way as the photocell, where as the temperature goes up, the resistance goes down. So if you play with that, you put that in place of the photoresistor. If you held the thermistor, you would hear the frequency go up. Exactly. Oh, yes. Oh, wait, there's a thing that I haven't shown you yet. Okay, wait, okay, hold on.
Check this out. Check this out. Oh my gosh, this is so.
What was your question?
How do I open a new tab?
His mind is pursuing it.
So is this gonna work? Please work. Make this work.
Make this work.
Please make this work.
Works, right?
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Make it work. Make it work. Make it work. Oh yeah. No. Yes. Okay. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. So I told you about that that language processing. So if you look up, so it's called now P5JS for JavaScript. There's a website. It's like hellop5js.org or something. It is so cool. You watch the video. You can mix video with these visualizations of data. It's crazy. At some point he's saying, and now we're connecting to the live wind direction and speed from New York City, and he's standing there in the video, and they're using these JavaScript objects behind him that are like these little balls that are going in the direction of the live wind speed with it's crazy. So we could imagine having we could have the baseline conductivity of some bunch of sensors averaged as something, as a metric, and then you could have your sensor relative to that. So I played around with this. This was really easy to do. Can you see this jumping frog? So this is measuring the frequency of audio that's coming in there. And if I don't know, can you make that noise happen again? I don't know if this will work. It has to be kind of loud, but so the deal is if I whistle, there's a lot of ambient noise here, but watch this. I don't know if this will work. Do you see that he was moving appropriately? Yeah. You'll if you play, so it should work on your laptop and on some smartphones that you navigate to this website, and you can get live audio into your browser, and you can whistle at it, and the frog will dance. But the promise here is that we can take in this water quality data in such a way that we're like, yeah, you do the math.
His x-axis movement
Is the frequency.
The frequency.
Yeah. So watch. Ready? Wait. Can you see this?
Yeah.
I hope this is being recorded for our friends at home. Wait, is there a Google Hangout that I'm like whistling at these people? Oh wow. Okay. Great.
Good publishing.
You see? So so you're taking the highest amplitude sound.
Yeah.
So the problem with the 555 timer actually is that it outputs a square wave which has all of these harmonics in it, but it seems to be working okay. So you take the highest amplitude frequency, and that's your signal. So that's the idea.
Yeah. The volume is the y-axis, and the megahertz is the frequencies on the x.
Exactly. Cool. So sorry, that's a long answer to your question about the piano tuner. That this would be the equivalent. Oh yeah, done. Oh, nice. Yeah, cool. So yeah, yeah, there you go. I guess. Cool. That's the thing. Is there anything else to talk about? Oh yeah, so I think that's the end of the ramble. Oh.
So how do I want to connect this? I can do it. Yeah, I'm gonna get rid of these. Okay, they're kind of. What?
And this is the data logger. And that connected this data logger to that, and this had all that. And that's so.
I'll just do that as grapes. That's reasonable, right? I don't know what this liquid is at the bottom.
I ran some.
Get a cookie?
That's what you're as a data logger. So then the next step would be.
So if anybody's interested in the Hackathon Golf Coast list, don't forget.
Yeah. So then the next step, you can add an audio jack. So you have to plug this in.
Do you want to do it?
And then it's still allowed. Yeah. That's right.
Conference room, so I'm going to bring them back.
I'm only on the. Are you coming here?
Okay.
No. All out.
But that and also wires that are just at but in any case, that'll be more in your Okay.
How do you want non-house people clean up the what they
the budget matters.
Yeah. But yeah, I
We just take these back.
Well, we were just wondering if what I would say is if you we might find out that it's okay for you to take them home if you want to. So you can stop by sometime and grab them. Oh, right. Yeah, maybe that'd be good. If you keep them assembled, then you can have them around for Thursday. And you
Hey y'all, we're gonna wrap up and we'll answer some of the questions I think that are coming up right now. So everybody give Don and Stevie a cover lab. So we want to, we're coming close to the end of our time and we're gonna need to get out of here. But so this was a closing discussion. Does anybody want to raise your hand, say a thing that you learned today that was new, different, cool? Something you had fun with? No, nothing? I feel like there's a lot of connections that were made tonight. I hope y'all had fun. It was really cool to see y'all building